Hello and welcome back to Portable Magic. Today I will be talking about the series that I want to read within the next year or two and walk through them with you, talk about them, get myself excited about them again because these are all fantasy. I have been putting fantasy to the wayside. I wish I wouldn't do that, but I have. That's just something that happens whenever you read across the board. As you can see, fantasy is my favorite genre, so I'm just looking forward to all of these books and all of these series, and I want to get a jump on them as soon as possible. And you will probably notice some of these, if you guys have followed me for a little bit, you will notice that some of these are on my 25 to read in 2025. Some of these are on my Our Fantasy Bingo. So you will have seen these before, but I do need to talk about them so that I can get myself hyped about them again. Okay, and the first one I am going to talk about is the Combat Codes by Alexander Darwin. So this is one I've had on my TBR for quite some time. It was on my TBR whenever it was self-pub, and it's still on my TBR. This is sci fantasy. In this book, we have a world where they have decided they're not going to go to war anymore. How they are going to settle their disputes is to have their champions battle it out in an arena, and that is how things will be settled. And in this one, we have a guy who is going to be becoming the next champion of his nation, and we have a knight looking for the next champion, all of that stuff. I do think that this will be good. I do think that it's going to have a lot of training sequences. I know we are going to be in a combat school where martial arts is at the forefront, and I think I'm going to really enjoy this. It has been a long time coming. Like I said, this was on my TBR as a self-published book, and now it is traditionally published, and I still haven't read it. I don't know why, because sci fantasy is something that I absolutely love. So I just need to go ahead and read it. Next, we have The Starless Crown by James Rollins. Now, the reason this is making this video, not only is this on my 25 I want to read in 2025, I own the first two, not having read the first one. The third one is coming out soon or has been released this year, so I do need to get on it. This is Moonfall, I believe is the name of the series, and I have had James Rollins on my TBR for a while. I have read some stuff by him. It was like Indiana Jones stuff, but I have really enjoyed his writing. I like his vampire series. I have read that. And so with a fantasy coming along, I just need to read it. It says, an alliance embarks on a dangerous journey to uncover the secrets of a distant past and save their world in this captivating visionary adventure. Who will claim the Starless Crown? Now, I do know that this has a student in it, and I think that that's what keeps me from reading it, because I'm afraid of like the academia part of it. I'm not the biggest fan of dark academia. I'm not the biggest fan of school settings, even though I just mentioned the combat codes. I have heard that the training sequences in the combat codes are very good though. So this is another that I'm just hoping I'm going to love. I've heard very good things about this from people that read similar to me. So it's one that I just need to get started and see if I like it. So next on this list would be Iconoclast by Mike Shell, Aching God being the first book of that series. I'm looking over here because I have an audio of this one, and I think I have the entire trilogy. We have a former treasure hunter, which if you guys know anything about me, you know I really like rogue characters, and so that's one of the things that set me off in wanting to read this. We have a guy chasing after his daughter to save her, and that's another trope that I really like. And we have a group of ragtag rogues going after his daughter, which is another thing that I really like. And I've heard that this is dark fantasy, so I'm just looking forward to all of those elements that I've heard are so good in this story. This is one of those dark fantasy, if it is dark fantasy, don't quote me on that, I have heard that actually sets at a 4.17 on Goodreads, and it has only 3,703 ratings, so it's kind of an underrated book. And I know that Andrew from Andrew's Wizardly Reads really likes this series, and that makes me feel like I will probably like it as well. Next would be An Alchemy of Masks and Mirrors by Curtis Craddock. I've heard very good things about this. I know that so many people really enjoy this. I know we have a disabled main character as our main character. I have heard so many people talk about this series, and I have yet to pick it up, but I've owned it for so long. So it's definitely a series that I need to start and figure out if I want to continue to collect the books or if I want to DNF and get rid of them. But I've heard such good things about this, and what I've told you is what I know. So it says, born with a physical disability and no magical talent, but a precocious intellect, Princess Isabel de Zephyrs has lived her life being underestimated by her family and her kingdom. The only person who appreciates her true self is Jean-Claude, the fatherly musketeer who has guarded her since birth. All shall change, however, when an unlikely marriage proposal to the second son of a dying king and an empire collapsing into civil war is offered. But the last two women betrothed to this prince were murdered, and a sorcerer assassin is bent on making Isabel the third. So I think that this could be really, really intriguing. And I love political intrigue. That is one of the main things that I like in fantasy. So hopefully this will work out really well for me. Now, a more recent addition to the TBR would be Blood of the Old Kings. If you've noticed, most of these are finished series. And so why am I adding a book that only the first has released? I think I will really like this. I've really, really enjoyed Asian fantasy over the last few years. And so I definitely want to get this one on the books. And it says, in an empire run on necromancy, dead sorcerers are the lifeblood. So I didn't need any more. And knowing anything about this, there's a dragon on the cover. We're talking about necromancers. That makes me believe that this is going to be a little dark and that we might get some horror elements in here. And that speaks to me on so many levels, so many levels. So, and this is a translated work, which I haven't read very many of over the last few years. So I might as well add one to this TBR. Next is another one that I own on ebook, and I do want to get it read. It's one that I think is going to be completely up my alley. Also, another underrated fantasy with only 603 ratings. It's going to be The Broken Heart of Aurelium by Alex Robbins. Now, in this, I don't know much about the book, but there are so many people who have recommended the series to me that I wanted to add it to this list. It says, over 400 years ago, 12 great warriors united the beleaguered armies of men and scoured the war-torn lands of evil, pushing the enemy back into underground pits and caverns from whence they came. To ensure their legacy, each of the 12 founded fortresses, monasteries to impart their unique knowledge of war and politics to a select few, the Knights of the 12. Okay. In reading just that little bit, I know exactly why people have recommended this to me. I am a Dragon Age fan, and so some of this is speaking to the Wardens of Dragon Age. And if you know anything about me, I picked Moon Warden for my magical readathon for a very specific reason, because I love the Wardens of Dragon Age. And yeah, this sounds like the Wardens and the Darkspawn and stuff like that. So I get why people recommend it to me quite a bit, and I'm very excited to get started on this series. Okay, this next one is definitely a veteran to my TBR lists, and I keep not reading it. I don't know why, but it is A Crown for Cold Silver by Alex Marshall. Yes, you guys have heard me talk about this quite a bit. Yes, you know that this is similar to Game of Thrones. If you've been here for any amount of time, you know that because I have said it a million times. I've put this on a few lists, a few TBRs, and I still haven't read it. So I definitely want to get to this one. It is compared to Game of Thrones a lot, like I said. It is dark fantasy, and it says, it was all going so nicely right up until the massacre. 20 years ago, Fear General Cobalt Zosia led her 5 villainous captains and mercenary army into battle, wrestling monsters and toppling an empire. When there were no more titles to win and no more worlds to conquer, she retired and gave up her legend to history. Now the peace she carved for herself has been shattered by unprovoked slaughter in her village, seeking bloody vengeance. Zosia heads for battle once more, but to find justice, she must confront grudge-bearing enemies, once loyal allies, and an unknown army that marches under a familiar banner. So this combines Game of Thrones with the Maleficent 7. And I should absolutely love this. Why have I not picked this up yet? I don't know. I think there is a fear tied to books that you think you're going to give 5 stars. Like, you just want that to remain. Like, you want it to stay a 5-star prediction instead of reading it and being disappointed. I think I've hyped myself up for this book so much. There is that fear tied to it, but I'm really excited to finally delve into this series. Okay, every time I ask for underrated series, this series comes up, and it's called The Tidecaller Chronicles by Levi Jacobs, Daughter of Flood and Fury being the first one. And it speaks to me on very many levels. However, it is young adult, so I'm a little hesitant to start it for that reason. A lot of times the young adult stuff doesn't quite work for me. And it says Alethea, not going to try to pronounce that last name, is a walking heresy, a girl born with a man's magic. She studies among the city's revered monks only on the authority of her father, head seer of the temple. Already disliked for her gender and blasphemous magic, things fall apart when her father is deposed and murdered. Searching for answers to a sudden death, Althea stays on at the temple only by being the best and by bearing her grief in the quest. So, I mean, it could be really good. I have heard it's amazing. It is at a 3.8 on Goodreads with only 372 ratings, so definitely an underrated book. But I am excited to get into this because I love a badass female main character, and it seems like we're going to be working through her grief in this series, so I do like that as well. And I'm just interested to see how this series goes for me. Now, one that I have recently found out that this series might not be for me, but it has been on my list for quite some time, and it only has 196 ratings on Goodreads. It's A Drowned Kingdom by P.L. Stewart, and I've actually talked to P.L. Stewart, such a kind person, and so I want to read this based on the author, the fact that the author is such a nice guy. And I've heard this might not be for me. I've heard that it's very, very slow. I've heard that there are certain things about it I'm not gonna like, but it has been on my radar for a very long time. And like I said, I really like the author, so I wanted to give it a shot. I do have this on audio, so I'm hoping that with the audio, the slow pacing of the book won't be such an issue, but we'll see, we'll see. It says science fiction fantasy, so that could bode well for me, hopefully. And the synopsis is very long, but like I said, I just wanted to pick this up based on the author. Okay, next would be The Emperor's Wolves by Michelle Segarra. Now this has a 4.34 rating on Goodreads and only 1,729 ratings. So I am looking for some underrated fantasy whenever I am telling you what I want to read, simply because I tend to like those books more. This is also a prequel to The Chronicles of Elantra, which I have not read yet. It says, as an orphan scrounging the lawless slums, young Severin Handred didn't have the luxury of believing in anything beyond his own survival. Now he's crossed the river and entered the heart of the empire, the city of Elantra. When Severin is spotted tailing some lawmen of the Hawks, a not insignificant feat to go otherwise undetected, the recruiter of the Imperial Wolves thinks he should join their ranks. And there's more to that synopsis, but that was all I needed to be intrigued by this. Like I said, I haven't read The Chronicles of Elantra, but Michelle Segarra is one of those authors that has been on my radar for quite some time, and I have yet to pick up anything by her. So I really, really want to get into this and see if I like it. And if I do, there's a whole nother series for me to read, and that is fantastic. One that has been on my list, on my radar for way too long, and I haven't read it, would be Gunmetal Gods by Zamil Akhtar. I have had this on my list. Oh gosh, I think this was in SPFBO, maybe, I don't remember. But this is a dark fantasy that is sci fantasy, and I really, really want to get into it. They took his daughter, so Micaiah comes to take their kingdom. 50,000 gun-toting paladins march behind him, all baptized in angel blood, thirsty to burn the unbelievers. So that is the first line of the synopsis. That is what sold me. A lot of my friends really, really love this series, and so I thought I needed to get my hands on it, jump on it. I do own the audio, like I said. Now, this one is not as underrated as quite a bit of the other ones are. 3,274 ratings, so still not enough eyes on it than there should be. But I am so excited for a dark sci fantasy. So excited. I've had this on my radar for way too long, and I really need to get to it. All right, and lastly, we have In the Shadow of Lightning by Brian McClellan. Okay, I've talked about this a lot. This is on my 25 to read in 2025. There's a reason I want to start here with Brian McClellan, and that is because so many people tell me that his other series are so much better, but I like the idea of this one. I like the idea of magic being finite, and I really just want to get into Brian McClellan's works. Now, should I start with his worst? I think so, because if I like this one, then I think the other ones are only going to be better and get me more excited for what is to come. And I haven't had the best luck with Flintlock Fantasy, which is why I have not picked up Promise of Blood. Now that one has also been on so many TBRs of mine. It's on my R Fantasy Bingo. So hopefully I will like this one and then continue on with Promise of Blood. And if I don't like this one, it eliminates multiple books from my shelves. But I don't think I'm going to give up on Brian McClellan. If I don't like this one, I'll probably pick up Promise of Blood to see how I like that. And then get rid of them if I don't like them. But that is it for me today. Like, subscribe, do all the fun things, and I'll see you guys in my next video.